We are convening a 3-day workshop. It's called the Conservation Action Plan for the St. Vincent parrot, the Amazonia gildingi, and the Pichopedia bishopi, the whistling warbler. So basically this workshop is a regional initiative under the CEPF, Critical Ecosystem Partnership Fund, also the Birds Caribbean. On completion of this workshop, as a Forestry Services, we stand to benefit tremendously from various expertise coming together to develop a conservation action plan for these 2 flagship species, which are very important to the biodiversity of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and to conservation efforts as it relates to wildlife conservation and the conservation of endemic species. We have a cadre of officers who are attending the workshop, 5 of whom recently benefited from a trip to Puerto Rico, where they would have learned about telemetry operations, where you tag parrots in the wild so you can basically track their movement to see the dynamics of the species in terms of population dynamics, etc. So coming out of this important workshop, we should be equipped with a number of tools in terms of monitoring and surveying aspects when it comes to our wildlife species, because in order to manage these species effectively and efficiently, we need to know how they operate in terms of what environment they operate in terms of their food sources, how they are impacted by habitat challenges, habitat destruction, impacts of climate change that has to do with their breeding pattern, their feeding pattern. You mean having extreme weather conditions in terms of drought and the impact of bushfires as it relates to habitat. We also would be able to look at the impact of hurricanes on our natural environment and how it impacts on our species. So we are hoping at the end of this workshop to be better equipped with a conservation action plan, and this action plan is going to be basically a guide towards the conservation and protection of these 2 important species. We would have been blessed by the same organization in previous efforts where they would have done similar conservation action plan for the St. Vincent black snake and also for the whistling frog. So this is very important to us in St. Vincent, and we welcome the opportunity, and we hope that the knowledge gained at this 3-day workshop would be put to use for the better development of our flagship species in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
We are very elated about these birds because I can describe them as living symbols of our national heritage. As such, they are intricately woven into our ecological fabric of this our beloved island, which we call our home and Hairuna. And I am of the distinct impression that we are all pleased and honored to have these iconic birds with us. Now, as we all know, the eruption of the La Soufrière volcano, and more so the violent eruptions which took place in April of 2021, present a very stark reminder of both our resilience and the vulnerability of our ecosystem. And I really must commend the work of the Forestry Department along with some of our local organizations, Science, Mr. Nash's efforts with his organization to restore trails such as the Vermont Nature Trail and the excellent work that they have been doing in our forests given the impact of the eruption of our La Soufrière. So we must speak to our resilience and we must speak to our vulnerabilities, but more so the resilience and vulnerability of our own ecosystem and the need for us to continue putting things in place to protect these. As such, I think we all share an understanding that there is a very urgent need for us to better understand and protect and manage the rich biodiversity that surrounds us here in Hairuna, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I would say, therefore, that I think we need to place greater effort, greater emphasis in our response effort to enhance such. I think we also need to pay close attention to our research and monitoring efforts. This is very critical to help us to be more proactive rather than reactive. I very much hope, and I very much think so, that this workshop today will mark a significant and a critical milestone in this, our urgent journey to ensure that we not only protect these 2 endemic species of birds, but also that we properly understand, pay attention to, and protect and help to restore our own ecosystem.
So we've had a diverse group of stakeholders with us, and we've been discussing what are the threats to these species, what are the problems, and what are the solutions, most importantly. And all of that is going to go into an action plan. Today we've been working on the actions that we can take to make sure that these species are around for future generations to enjoy. They both have a threatened status with IUCN. One is vulnerable, the parrot, and the other one is endangered, the warbler. And so we want all Vincentians to know how very special these birds are, and it's up to all of us to take care of them and make sure that we have them to enjoy and appreciate. But they're also very important and vital to the ecosystem. They provide ecosystem services. They're part of the food web. And they're also a source of great national pride and also good for the local economy in terms of tourism, because bird watching is huge in the world. It's a growing hobby, and you will have visitors come here just to see your birds. So this is something that we also want to develop in the coming years. More bird tourism so that guides can benefit, eco lodges and hotels can benefit, taxi drivers, restaurants, everything that's unique to your culture is what people want to see and enjoy. So bird watching is one of those things, and I think it's often true that we don't appreciate what's in our own backyard, but really you have incredible nature and natural heritage here. Everybody will really appreciate conservation so that everybody can enjoy, both residents and visitors alike. Another area, this is specific to the St. Vincent Amazon, is the threat of poaching and wildlife trafficking. So this is a species that's highly desired by zoos and collectors, and it's protected by CITES. And so it's very important that this species is not trafficked illegally, which is happening right now. There's been a recent expose about that. An organization under the guise of conservation has been trafficking St. Vincent Amazon. So this is something that everybody should know about, and we should make sure that it doesn't continue to happen. So, we're working with the Forestry Department and Science on education outreach, research and monitoring. We've got programs in place that are really exciting. And over the next few years, we're going to be learning a lot more about these species, their habitat needs, their nesting ecology, what we need to do to protect them in the face of threats.
We do need to be very concerned about the conservation of these species and the conservation of the forest reserve particularly, because maybe people don't understand the value of it to our everyday lives, but if it's not there anymore, it would affect us greatly. And so part of this is developing educational programs and developing programs to reach out to communities and to get communities involved in the conservation of these various species. For me personally, being here talking about these issues, it's energizing, it's refreshing, it gives me a feeling of hope for the future, because for me personally, I think that conservation of the natural environment is very important to the health and well-being of our population. And each of us have a responsibility to understand how it affects us and how it brings value to our lives. So on a parting note, I just want to say a big thank you to the Forestry Department. My interaction with forestry over the years, it gives me hope for the future, because when I come into contact with people who work within the Forestry Department, I have never come across a more committed group of people. They're completely selfless when it comes to doing their jobs. And I would like everybody to give forestry as much cooperation as they possibly can to carry out the job that they do, because it's vital, and people have to make a special effort to understand how the role that the natural environment plays in our everyday lives. That is very important.
Having stronger legislation. In some cases where there's legislation, making sure that it's enforced, and making sure the agencies that are enforcing it have enough funding and capacity and resources to help them do their jobs more effectively. So it's really good to kind of see how this process is opening up perspectives to conservation of these two very important species, not just within a bubble or within a silo, but just from a national level or from a wider context.
What the workshop did for me is that it gave an eye-opener to these species that are so important to us. It helped me get a different perspective towards protection, being more cautious, even with making persons more aware of these species, especially the whistling warbler, because a lot of people already know about the St. Vincent parrot because it's right here in our botanical garden and basically can be seen anywhere. But the importance of telling persons about the whistling warbler is something that I am engaged in doing, and even furthering developing in whatever way that I can.
We continuously speak about educational program and educational outreach. But one of the main things that was highlighted within this workshop was that we need to involve more policy makers within these forum. We hold these workshops and then policymakers have different aim, different mission. They are not aware of what we do a lot of the times, and we need to also educate them and spread more awareness so that they can be on board with us, because come on, this is our national board. These are our endemic species, which means that we have a national pride. They cannot be found nowhere else in the world. So this is something that we need to be proud of. So in terms of the educational aspect, we need to involve policymakers, help them to get an understanding of why we do what we do, and help them to understand why others work hand in hand with us to ensure the conservation of these species.
At this workshop today, because of my work that I've been doing on my farm, which is at Grenadines Valley, that I have been the custodian for the parrots in that area and most of the birds that we have that habitate in the Grenadines Valley. But I am here because I wanted to learn a little bit more and also wanted to have a bit more awareness of what is going on, and this opportunity has broadened my knowledge and given me the sense of the importance of protecting these birds, protecting our forests, and making conscious decisions on what we need to do now and what we need to do for the future. So this has really helped me a lot. I would like to see a lot more happen with regards to education, a lot more happen with regards to legislation. It's about protecting our environment, making sure that we protect the things that protect us. So I'm here for that, and I'm looking forward to more and more of this sort of workshop so we can get more knowledge on these things, do more research on them, and so we can keep our environment happy and healthy. So I'm thankful for this opportunity, and I'll extend my gratitude to both Caribbean and to the Forestry Department because they played a vital role in this workshop. My part is basically to enhance the forest area in my 10-acre. We have been over the years planting fruit trees that allow them to have food and to be around there, because the parrots love to be happy. I mean, they're amazing birds and they're very smart too. So having that food source is so important, and we don't cut trees. If we do cut a tree, we plant 2 trees. So right now we're planting guava, we're planting golden apples, we've had lots of passion fruit, and those are the food that they like. So we have wax apple as well. So we're catering for all birds, but we're also basically focusing on the parrots. And one of the things that I would like to see is legislation for people who break the law, for the poachers, for the noisy people, because we have people who will come up there and blast their music and shoot off guns and whatever, and we need to do that. The other areas that are privately owned in that area is very foresty, and I would like to see the owners come together with myself, with forestry, and with the NGOs that are doing the conservation efforts to help with keeping that forest and helping with the ecosystem there. For bird watching, I will put them onto the guides because they know about the birds, they have more knowledge to explain and point out, because there's a lot more birds than the parrots, so they'll be able to, because a lot of the time the people come there, they want to see the parrots mainly, but they want to also see other birds. And we have things like chicken hawk, black hawk. I think we have all species of the hummingbird. And so they want to see all that stuff. So it's best to get a tour guide. But I'm in Grenadines Valley. It's called Amazonia Nest. And if somebody calls and say they want to do bird watching, I'll put them onto the guide and then they will make the trip. My cell phone number is 496-4825. And I'm on Facebook. I have a website. And I'm on Google as well, because I have a lot of reviews on Google.
From this, I could take away for my own island, Dominica, is that we realize there is a lack of enforcement within the region. There are usually very small fines for people who do break the law in terms of poaching charges and stuff like that. And it's the same here in St. Vincent as same ways in Dominica. I feel like we as a Caribbean collective share that, and we should do more to enforce that, as well as I feel there is much needed enforcement in the judicial system. Although you get charged, you don't get charged very heavily, and so first-time offenders who do illegal stuff, like let's say like whale hunting and selling of whale meat, that's illegal. If you get charged $500 for getting charged for selling whale meat, you probably make $2,000 just selling the whole whale meat. So that's not going to dent your pocket. So then it's stuff like this that we need to look at and maybe strengthen these penalties, maybe actually give jail sentences. Someone brought that up during the workshop that they've had decades of experience working in law enforcement in the US, and they realized that's one of the tactics that works. If prison time is the initial offer, they are less likely to reoffend. And so I thought that was a good takeaway here. We could really use that within the Caribbean. I feel like it's a good step forward, having it written down and have everybody's opinion on the matter, because I know personally I made some statements and a few other people was like, no, you should really consider this. And I should have, but because of the way I think, it was not taken in, and I really like that whole group setting. We were diplomatic about it. I feel like for this action plan to succeed, we need communication among the different agencies. It's not just forestry. You need law enforcement as well. You need tour guides. You need farmers, hunters, all these people who work within that forest space to be involved and making sure this project is successful. And also you need funding. You can have all the planning, but if you don't have money to implement it and keep it going consistently, it will not succeed.